Drinking cider down in my throat, into my tum. And it looks like Nat's cracking open a High Life. Is that what that is?
No, it's actually like a ginger ale thing.
Oh, okay. Which would have just cracked me up if it was a High Life, though.
It would have been funny. I'd have giggled.
Apple ginger.
Apple ginger.
Mm.
Look at you behaving yourself.
Some days. Some days I do.
Some days.
I think he misbehaves in other ways.
Every day. Still, I got my notes over here that I'm looking at when I'm looking off the screen. I'm looking at my Lauder notes.
Got to get it all ready.
Mm.
There's so much to do before I say hello. All the links. Oh, see? Someone asked me today, I said, hey, now that Trump's no longer president, who do you have to like channel your rage and pick on? I said, don't worry, Ted Wheeler's still mayor.
Yes,
And with
he
that,
is.
hello and welcome to issue 582 of Geek in the City of Radio. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Duran.
I'm one of your other hosts, Benarita.
And I am your other host, Cable Hashitani.
And joining us is the one and only Nat West of Reverend Nat's Hard Cider.
Ow! Not here to talk about cider today. No cider conversations whatsoever.
Although I might ask you stuff anyway.
I'm always available.
That's true. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a thing if like Bean hadn't rolled her eyes at me within the first 30 seconds.
I don't even remember why at this point.
I think because I was making fun of Ted Wheeler.
No, I would never roll my eyes at that. Fuck that guy. Fuck Ted Wheeler.
That's why I was so concerned. I was like, what did I do wrong?
Maybe I was rolling my eyes at the thought of Ted Wheeler.
Okay, that makes way more
sense.
Well, hi, everyone. How are we all doing?
Good? Good?
I mean,
Tuesday.
fine with a certain level of apprehension.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Recording this the day before the inauguration of number 46, Joe Biden.
Right.
He's only number 46 until we can get the former 45 invalidated entirely and stricken from the record.
Then it just goes from 44 to 46, right?
It's gonna be like the Barry Bonds of presidents. There's just gonna be an asterisk between 44 and 46.
Yep. The missing episode.
Right.
The missing episode of America.
Right. Like, what's his name? Who was like the older brother in Happy Days that literally went up the stairs in episode 2 and never came back?
Oh, right.
Right. Richie had an older brother. Everyone forgets.
You like the special needs one?
No, he had an older brother and they just wrote him out. He literally goes upstairs like at the end of episode 2 and he's not in the he's out. And they never bring him up again.
Too complicated.
Yeah. Although I'll be honest, I don't think I want to watch the inauguration live tomorrow because I will be too nervous for dark reasons.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I will be watching it live. I'm going to work early to watch it live with everyone else.
Right.
I'm going to. This is one of the times that I enjoy the fact that we're on the West Coast, so that when we wake up in the morning, we're going to know early if shit's gone sideways.
Oh, right. It's noon East Coast time.
It is.
Right.
Which is 9 a.m. here.
Now I don't know how to feel about the fact that getting up early means I don't have my leisurely headline time first thing when I wake up.
Yeah, no.
Right.
I mean, if you want to get up at like 4.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's not. Yeah. As it is, I am getting into this. I've been going to bed early every day, which for me is 11. I go to bed at 11. I'm normally that I get up at 9 for work so that I have a leisurely morning and then go straight to work. But that's too much sleep. And I'm just waiting for like, rather than like naturally waking up early, like a better human, what happens is I'm just going to like, in another week or two, I'm just going to not sleep at all. Just complete deficit.
Right. Till you hit the big reset button again.
Basically, yeah. And then I'll go to bed early that night, the next night, and hope to catch up.
Right.
But my body can't just do me the favor of like, you've had enough sleep. You're gonna wake up now. No, it's just going to deprive me of any sleep because I've had so much.
I had the and I think every video game person probably knows this feeling every once in a while. I picked up finally Cyberpunk 2077.
Mm-hmm. How long ago?
First off,
How long ago?
So I got it like a week ago, and I just cracked it open yesterday. Yeah, I like it.
Sleep last night.
No, I went to bed at 2 a.m. today. Like I ended up not being able to do anything tomorrow like I thought I was gonna. I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna stay here and play video games all day and all night. And I did.
What version did you download? Is it on part like 1.0?
No, I just bought the discs of it. And install took like 5 hours because there's the install disc and then the game disc. So I'm guessing I have the most updated version because I did the hardware version of it.
I downloaded Red Dead Redemption 2. I have not played it. I downloaded it like 2 weeks ago, thinking I'm going to let all of the Cyberpunk updates come in. I'm going to finish RDR2 story mode and then catch Cyberpunk in a couple of months.
What system are you playing it on?
The new Xbox Series S.
Look at you, fancy pants.
I think that most of the problems have been with the people who have been playing it for the PS4.
Yeah.
That's what I've got, and it's running fine. It's no more glitchy than like when Skyrim first came out.
Sure.
And that sucker, dragons flying backwards, horses running through mountains. The bard you couldn't kill no matter how hard you tried. It's like, it's fine. Whatever.
Those all sound perfectly normal to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird that we allow glitches to be normal, but it's like there's so much they have to fucking check. I can't be hating on them.
And it's because they keep coming up with arbitrary release dates that are based on someone else's bottom line and not the actual amount of time it takes to create something like this.
Yeah, well, they have been at this one for like 4 years or something. So
something like that. Yeah. I will say my poor PS4 is working so hard. It's just like like before I installed it, gave the system like a deep physical cleaning, wiped out anything that I wasn't currently playing that could be maybe using that background information, and it's fine. And it's got longer load times, but I remember like in the first Resident Evil on the PlayStation, every time you opened a door, it was 90 seconds.
Nice.
I think I did read the load. A lot of the issues with the Cyberpunk game on console is the way they're loading. It's no load screens, right? Once you get into the game, and it's a very dense city. You're not like on Witcher where you can see like 400 miles away. But there's just so much detail they're cramming into everything visible. So and things don't pop as you get closer to them. Everything's visible all the time. So they're constantly unloading and reloading assets. So I think I read that's like the big problem with consoles, that they just can't get stuff in and out fast enough, data in and out fast enough.
Yeah. But it's fun. So far, the story, I'm digging it. And I think the character works really well done. The voice works really well done. So, it's fun. And one day when I get a PS5, I get the free upgrade. So, whatever.
Yeah. I will say that Merrick's been playing it for a while now. I think she got it when it came out.
That's like her jam,
PC,
though, right?
She's PC.
She's PC, and it's a PC specifically built to play this game.
Ooh.
So
probably plays pretty well.
Yes. She's like, I get that I'm not having the same problems that everyone else is, but also I've been planning for this for longer than most people have.
That's why I bought my Xbox, is because I've been on a Switch for a couple of years, and I got it just to play Cyberpunk. So
if I had one beef with it, I don't like first person for role playing games. I prefer third. But that's a personal thing.
If I may, I'm going to do a little solicitation for if you're on Twitch and want to see more of the gameplay, she has been streaming weekly, at least twice a week, her games. So
Cool.
you can find her on Twitch if you want to watch.
Gotta ask her what her character build is like.
So here's one of the tips that she gave. She bought the Cyberpunk Red core rulebook for the RPG and used that to figure out how to build her character in game a week and a half before she got it.
Damn, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I took someone's advice when I first started it because I Bean can attest to this, having playing Left 4 Dead with me. I'm a very bad at first-person shooters. But I had someone tell me, like, no, if you do the right build with a hacker, you can just basically have other things take out your enemies without you ever engaging. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's fun. Nice. And then I just got really good with movement stats and melee, and I'm just like this katana-wielding angel of death. Because usually the swords take out almost any bad guy like in 2 swipes, and I can cross that room like that. By the time they're like reloading, they're dead. And it's kind of fun.
That's my go-to as well, especially when I don't like, even back when I played a lot of first-person shooter type games, I still always prefer just like a quick close the gap and just melee them to death.
Yeah, it's totally
easier and more satisfying.
I think I read that the game developers said that you could play through all of Cyberpunk 2077 without killing anyone the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
You can, yeah.
So it seems like a lot of different ways to avoid the bad first-person shooter sort of thing.
I saw someone play all of one of the Metal Gear Solid games without killing anyone once. Not counting robots, but they said like it was one of...
Is it basically like a charisma dump? You just really, really flesh out those characteristics so that you can talk your way out of shit? Or is it more like evasive maneuvers?
It's evasive maneuvers, and both Metal Gear and Cyberpunk have non-lethal options if you want.
Mm-hmm.
It's just harder.
Interesting.
It's way easier to just fucking drop a shape charge into a room and clear it out than it is
to silently knock everyone out in an entire room.
And then also try to hide their bodies so that the other people don't see them and come, Anyway. There's yammering on there.
I do like what seems to be a preponderance of hairless cats throughout the alleyways in Night City.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's fun. I dig it. So Nat, we had you on. We're having you on. A, because we love having you on, and B, was that a little over a week ago? I got a very excited text from you with Lord of the Rings casting, character, and story information.
Super.
And I will admit, I enjoy my elves and dwarves and hobbits and wizards, but I don't know the deep dive you do. So I was reading that screen cap you sent me, and I'm like, okay, I recognize that name.
Yeah.
But this clearly is important. So give us you're basically our go-to Lord of the Rings person.
Well, I'll take that. Yeah, I'm actually going to bring up so like a week ago or so, the Amazon dropped a paragraph or so synopsis for the okay. Well, I'll just read it. It's blah 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 blah. This epic drama is set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and will take viewers back to an era in which great powers were forged, the rings.
Okay.
Kingdoms rose to glory and fell to ruin, Numenor. Unlikely heroes were tested. There's a lot of options there. Hope hung by the finest of threads. That's the fall of Numenor and the departure of the faithful to Middle-earth. And the greatest villain that ever flowed from Tolkien's pen threatened to cover all the world in darkness. Now, that's technically not true, because the greatest villain was Melkor, Morgoth, but they're referencing Sauron here, which is fine. Beginning in a time of relative peace after the destruction or the banishment of Morgoth, the series follows an ensemble cast of characters, both familiar and new. The only familiar ones we're really going to get are familiar to everybody else other than somebody like me, is Galadriel and Elrond both exist in the Third Age, which is the War of the Ring, and the Second Age.
And
so
Elrond's
really
a lot younger than Galadriel, isn't he supposed to be, from what I'd read?
Yeah, a few thousand years. Galadriel is like super duper duper old. Yeah. Let's go with a familiar and old as they confront the long-feared re-emergence of evil to Middle Earth. So Sauron's boss is Morgoth, and he gets banished at the end of the First Age. From the darkest depths of the Misty Mountains to the magical forests of the elf capital Lindon to the breathtaking island kingdom of Numenor to the furthest reaches of the map, these kingdoms and characters will carve out legacies that live on long after they are gone. So the short of it is that it's Second Age, and the Second Age is basically four ages in the Tolkien Legendarium. The First Age is really kind of woo-woo, and is like elves are like not fully, they don't abide by the laws of physics, so things can get really hard to describe and to portray stuff from the First Age. Very like gods,
mystical.
It can be very mystical, and it I think it would suffer from one of the things that made Game of Thrones so popular was that it was very gritty. Like it filled in a lot of the details that felt kind of like our world in Game of Thrones. I think that works well in any show where you can bring non fans in by relating it a little bit more to our world. And the First Age is out for that. And also what's really cool about the Second Age is that so many of the things that casual Lord of the Rings fans are aware of from either reading the book or watching the Peter Jackson movies, things like the story of the One Ring, the 3 rings for the elves, the 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, characters like Galadriel or Elrond, Aragorn is direct descendant of Isildur. These kind of things that a lot of people would maybe not know, but it'll ring a bell for them. Mm-hmm. They all have origin stories in the Second Age. So everything that happens in the Third Age, with the exception of the existence of hobbits, is really created in the Second Age. So it's a way for non-nerds to be able to appreciate the show, because they're going to be able to pick up some things that they know and not feel like, I mean, if you got dumped into like season 3, episode 6 of Game of Thrones, you'd be like, I have no idea what's happening, right? I mean, I said that on every episode pretty much, and I watched the whole thing, right? But I think there's more of an opportunity for people to feel a little bit grounded in the Tolkien Legendarium because they're going to be using the Second Age. So,
Does the Second Age officially end with that big battle with Sauron that we see at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, or is
exactly? So yeah, we in the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, Galadriel kind of recaps a bit of the story of the ring, and we saw the last alliance of elves and men, the one that Isildur chopped Sauron's finger off. That is all. That was the ending of Second Age. That's all Second Age material for sure. So yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things that I read is that the agreement that Amazon signed allows them to use certain creative assets from the Peter Jackson trilogy. Some people think it's just like in case they accidentally step on somebody's toes, because they're filming in New Zealand, so they're going to go to Hobbiton, and I mean, Hobbiton still exists, right? They're going to kick all the tourists out and film some. I mean, there is no Hobbiton in the Second Age, so it's a different story. But some of the same geographic features can come back that we saw in the movies can come back in the show. So we're not. People don't really think it's going to be like, oh, here's that battle, and it's the same, lineup of Elrond with his, sword and stuff. But there could be some overlap, and I think that they've crafted their contract such that it's okay if there's a little bit of overlap.
Well, that makes sense, because you need to kind of have Peter Jackson kind of created based on, a state-approved artwork or whatnot, but those films are, like, when you think of Lord of the Rings now, there's a visual that you have in your head.
Yeah.
And I think if you deviate from that, that's a hard thing to resell.
Yeah, and I think one thing that fans like myself were really excited about the movies is that Peter Jackson did a really good job. Some folks, when you're reading a book, you have a character in your head. A lot of people have that, that what that character looks like, or you might cast that person in your head for the live action version. And I think we were all really excited when Peter Jackson stuff came out because it was all very in line with both Tolkien's specific descriptions as well as the sort of emotional nature of the writing. So
right,
yeah.
And then I know you've spoken about this a little bit, and that you're kind of happy about it. That from what I've read, the Amazon show is going to have a more diverse cast.
Oh yeah.
And I've already saw, like, I hate to call it because I feel like you're a big Tolkien purist, but I feel like I've been reading about some less than open Tolkien purists that were like, there were no black people in Lord of the Rings, so now they're just trying to be woke by doing it. And like, it opened up this entire can of worms about Tolkien's own real past and the area he grew up in and stuff like that. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's just straight up racism coming out anywhere it can. There's numerous references to various. Tolkien uses specific color words to describe people's skin color. So there he doesn't. I don't really think he ever really mentions. There's very few mentions of dark skins, but there's a lot of mentions that he has of what would be non-white people. So I think if you Google like the Amazon Lauder cast list, you get these great photos, and there's white people in there for sure. But I haven't done a count or anything, but there's a lot of people who have different colored skins. And I think it works out really well. There's a couple of really fascinating. They're going to have to largely be the race of men, humans. But within the race of humans, there's a lot of opportunities for the Easterlings to come in, and they interact with the Numenorians regularly throughout the Second Age. The Haradrim from the south, which were featured in the Peter Jackson movies, is like that one person of color who gets like thrown off the elephant and lands at Sam's feet, and
right,
like, did this guy really want to come and fight, or was he lied to? Like all of Sauron the Deceiver's armies. I think there's a lot of opportunities for sort of different non-white people to fit in really, really well with Legendary Men. Not if you hear from a lot of fans and they're saying there's no place for non-whites to be in this show, that they're not true Lauder fans, and they happen to be racist. So
right,
I think there's just a lot. You don't have to be actively anti-racist to embrace this cast list. You can just be a straight up Lauder nerd and embrace the cast list.
Right. And I've read before, like, arguments about it that like all of the enemies that we saw in in the Jackson movies, all the non-white people are usually the bad guy, and they're like, that's proof of that. And but you brought something up that's like true. Like, a lot of these armies, for me, I remember reading it back, is that he's Sauron the Deceiver. Like, he tricks a lot of these kingdoms into going to war.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a ton of opportunity. One thing I'm really excited about in the Second Age is that if you read the Silmarillion, the Zeroth Age is like many pages. The first age is many, many pages. The second age is like very few pages. But there are tons of stories in the Second Age. So it's really cool that the showrunners can they won't break canon because there's so little written about the Second Age. The major chunks of stories, the rise and fall of Numenor, the reemergence of Sauron, the creation of the rings, that's like, I mean, Tolkien wrote like 50 pages in the Silmarillion about this Second Age, and we have like 3,400 years of history that he wrote like 50 or 75, something like it. Not enough pages. So things like if you come into it and say, okay, let's try to get some non-white people into the cast. We could be capitalistic about it and get some non-white people to watch the show too, right? Where could they fit in? Oh, there's tons of opportunity for them to fit in and not break canon at all. So stories like, he's the deceiver. He's gonna get people from the east and from the south, and there's a whole section of the Second Age where he goes to war with Celebrimbor, the forger of the rings, and they beat his ass, and he goes back to Barad-dûr, and then he's like, okay, I'm not going to fight the elves and these men anymore. I'm going to go grab all these Easterners and these Southerners who, to come back and fight again. So there's a lot of political stuff that they could bring up that would be super fun and interesting, that happened, but Tolkien just didn't write about it. So
there was like a lot of like, and then this happened and this happened and this happened, but none of the hows and whys and.
Yeah, so much, and just great stories like the Rise and Fall of Numenor, or Eärendil the Mariner, like disappearing and becoming a star in the sky is like this huge plot line. And Tolkien has this tendency to he has themes, very specific sort of little plot devices that he brings up again and again. 3,000 years later, he'll bring up the same little plot device again. So we have the opportunity to draw some of the comparisons that people might know about Aragorn and Arwen. They could bring that into the story of Elwing and Eärendil, but there's no rules about the color. Elves pretty much got to be like white skin, pretty much. They can have different color hair, but you got to be really light skin according to the canon to play an elf. But there's so much. Elves are 30% of the story of the Second Age, and humans are the majority of the story. So there's a lot of opportunity for really cool casting. And I don't know.
I didn't realize that elves had that small of a part.
Well, yeah, I mean, after the first age, the elves are like, we're getting the hell out of here. So Elrond says, the elves are leaving Middle Earth, and we're going back to Valinor because this place sucks. So that's been going on. That goes on for thousands and thousands of years. So over the course of the entire story of Middle Earth, elves are continuing to depopulate Middle Earth, and the Second Age was a big one because what kicks off the Second Age is Melkor, Morgoth, Sauron's boss, gets banished to off-world into the void. And during that process, most of Middle Earth is geologically destroyed, and the elves are like, "Whoa, we had I used to live right there, and then I don't have a house anymore. So screw this, we're getting out of here." So they all go into the west. So there's just a ton of opportunities for. Well, I could go on and on.
No,
which is fine.
About John. And actually, I have another nerdy question that I enjoy Lord of the Rings, but I don't have the deep knowledge of it, and I just kind of have to know, are we gonna see more dragons?
Oh yeah. So
I feel like they hint at dragons used to be fucking everywhere, and then they weren't.
Yeah. So dragons are a creation of Morgoth, and Morgoth. So the difference between Morgoth and Sauron is there's no other Lord of the Rings reference, because Morgoth, when Eru Ilúvatar, who's the one, the being, the immortal, the god, he sits in his timeless halls and he's chilling for a long time, and he's bored, but there's no sense of time, so this is all pre-First Age stuff. And one day or something, there's no days yet, he decides he's going to make some friends. So he uses song, he sings creatures into existence, and those are the Ainur, which are the top gods of his creation. Once he creates the Ainur, he kind of takes a step back. He builds some stuff on the world, but he pretty much says, "All right, this is good. You guys just go run this world for me while I'm going to go do something else." And so the Ainur are you can sort of think about them like the Greek pantheon. So there's the big guy Manwë, and then his wife, and Yavanna is she's plant stuff, and Eul is the smith, and he's making things. So there's all these highest level gods. Morgoth is one of the highest level gods. He's the second most powerful god. Then there's the next significant step down. They are simply the helpers of the gods. Gandalf is one. The Balrog of Moria is one. Sauron is one. Sauron, then at Morgoth, they both create dragons. So there's always giant worms, they're called. And they didn't actually fly in the First Age. A couple of them flew in the Second Age, but yeah, we'll get dragons for sure. It isn't there's not a lot of them. They are mostly named, but there's a couple of really awesome ones that Ankalagon the Black is like one of the big bad ones. So
that's a cool name.
We'll see a couple for sure. Yeah.
Well, nice, man. I mean, I was already kind of excited for it because, just more fantasy on TV makes me happy, but I kind of like, you kind of laid out what you can expect a little bit, which is pretty cool.
Well, so they spent $250 million to buy the rights.
Yeah.
And by comparison, the Peter Jackson movies cost $281 million to make. So they've already spent all their money just getting the rights. They committed to 5 seasons. The first season is going to have 20 episodes in it. You do some math and you look at what Game of Thrones costs, and a lot of people estimate this is going to be $1 billion to make this show. It's also interesting because the Second Age has amazing stories in the beginning and then amazing stories 3,000 years later. I'm might be getting over the tip of my skis here, but I think that each season could be a story. I think there's enough epic stories, and there are enough characters who move from one story to the next because they're elves, they live forever. And then there are also this descendant line of humans, which could be like, oh, my grandfather was in the previous story, and now. So I think there's an opportunity, not like the Lord of the Rings movies that we saw, where you can kind of count the days as they go by. The whole War of the Ring lasted like 6 months or something from when Frodo left Hobbiton before he threw the ring in.
Only 6? I don't know why I was told 18 once.
No, from when he leaves, it's pretty quick. It's quick. So I don't know how you tell a TV show or a movie story across 3,400 years of history, and you do need the beginning because that's it's like 3,000 years because Sauron returns about 500 years into the Second Age, so you need to cover 3,000 years across 5 or so seasons.
Wow,
it'll be a challenge.
A lot of time to cover.
A lot of time, yeah. So I don't really see how they're going to do it. Like sort of,
It's also a heck of a job to sign up for. You're looking at like a decade of work if you're a character who's going to have to appear at every season. Kind of thing.
I just pulled up the cast list on IMDb, and I don't recognize a single name, which is always exciting.
Yeah.
I was looking at a headline that, and I didn't catch the name. I feel like they were being indirect about it, but I was able to see that she's a woman of color, and she was Amanda Waller for a short run in the Arrowverse, where they did like a Brave Suicide Squad thing. She was in a bunch of other stuff too, but I'm like, you should recognize her from that.
No, that is correct. Cynthia Addai Robinson. She was Amanda Waller in Arrow. There is one other actor that I recognize his face, and his name is Simon Merrills, who played Julius Caesar on DC's Legends of Tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So they pooled from the Vancouver casting pool.
Oh, there's a lot of sense in that.
And then moved them to New Zealand.
Yeah, they moved. Yeah. There is one actor who played some rando orc in the Peter Jackson series, and he's casted, but he doesn't look like an orc type. He looks kind of like mannish. So it'll be it'll be funny to have that one guy come back. But
yeah, there is a varying. There's a lot of variance in colors and backgrounds of all of these people, which is nice to see.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
It doesn't say who any of them are playing.
No,
which, again, good. I don't want to know.
None of that's been released. Yeah. So they started filming pre-COVID, shut down. They're back to filming now. I haven't. I'm not so into the latest news and rumors, so I'm not sure when the release date is, but I assume that is probably a known thing.
Looks like it's also a relatively young cast.
Yeah, I mean, you get the benefit of elves don't ever look old, and then
there's that,
and then humans, the Numenorians live like between 90 and like 300 years, depending on what line you came from. So it can definitely be a young, you can stick with canon, so to speak, and have a lot of young folks. I mean, they got to cast them young because who was saying 10 years, right? You're gonna be at the
That's what
gym forever.
Yeah, right. That's what I was thinking. Like, you need someone a little bit younger because they're all gonna get old.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you gotta get them while they're really fresh faced so that they don't visibly age in that 5-year contract.
Yeah, and not famous enough that they're going to have scheduling conflicts. You just want to like lock them into your show, make them.
Ooh.
One of our listeners in the chat said that the release date is March 12th
of this year.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wait, really?
Put in my leave of absence right now.
I think the only way to verify that is to check Amazon, since it's going to be on Amazon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not gonna. Yeah.
So is IMDb, but I don't think we saw it there either.
I mean, yeah, the official news says there's no release date, but I who knows? I mean, they did start filming, pre-COVID, so I don't know.
Or it's one of those things where like they have like maybe like the first, like they have the first like 2 episodes done, so they're like, we're gonna release it as like a movie, and then say like coming in 2022, the story kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Could be. Who knows?
You told me not to bring it up, but will you be planning any themed ciders for the release? I mean, actually, you used to do your Tolkien like birthday thing.
Yeah, we do the Bilbo's birthday.
Back when we could go to places.
Party every year. Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's still been so hard. We've been moving the cidery, so for the last couple of months, and we moved tanks yesterday, and today we're moving tanks again tomorrow. It's the last kind of thing. If you drive by and look at our place and pick your head in the window, there's hardly anything in there. So without having a tap room, it becomes really difficult to make one-offs. So I'm not really planning on any kind of celebratory a cider for this. So
well, I think the first celebration we have with your stuff will be when we can actually go to places again.
Yeah, and the new building would be. We're going to throw a huge party in there. I'm targeting June 1st. I'm just going to put that out there for the universe to make happen.
Be positive. We can throw some tents outside and stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's a big space, and will half of us be vaccinated on June 1st? Yeah.
I keep watching my emails, waiting for my approval through my insurance company. So
maybe someday.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I'm still pumped. The show's got me like excited.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention, if anybody's, I assume a lot of people have watched the movies. A lot of listeners or whatever watch the movies because that's everybody gets to the movies. If you want to do a little bit of reading. As you get prepared for the show, the Silmarillion is. I was gonna look it up ahead of time, but I forgot. Silmarillion is the book that was written, that was published posthumously by Christopher Tolkien, and Christopher Tolkien died recently, last year, and he is son of one of the sons of J.R.R., and he took up the mantle of the Middle Earth and published the Silmarillion based all on his father's works. One of Tolkien's great flaws, in addition to not being very woke, is that he wrote the same name of a character many times differently and had different stories and backgrounds to them. So there's no real authority for a lot of the stories of Middle Earth, except for what Christopher Tolkien created. So it's great to read the Silmarillion because it's, Tolkien wrote thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, and you can read it all if you want to, but it's dumb. The Silmarillion is whatever, like 250 pages or something. But it's super hard to get through because
365 a page a day.
Great. So it's very hard to get through because it's largely free of like any sort of conversation or action. It's reads more like just like encyclopedia page. So it can be tough to it's not a page turner by any means. There's sections of it that are really exciting, but 75% of it's boring to read from a literary perspective. But there's a great, if you Google Silmarillion Primer, there's a dude named Jeff LaSala, who's a pretty heavy a Lord of the Rings nerd, and he breaks down each chapter of the Silmarillion in plain English. And he's funny. He's very serious about sticking to canon, but he throws in like absurdities into his explanation of the chapter regularly. So as you're reading it, it's like, and then Sauron cooked a pepperoni pizza, and he didn't cook a pepperoni pizza because it's not what Sauron would do. But it keeps it lively, and it's very fun to read. So if you're reading the Silmarillion, get a tablet device and get a second tablet device or a book, Silmarillion over here, and the Silmarillion Primer. Read chapter 1 here, and then read chapter 1 here. And then read chapter 2 here. And then
it looks like the primer is actually all available for free on Tor.com.
Yes, exactly.
It's just he just did a bunch of. It's just every chapter is an essay.
It's exactly. It's the world's biggest blog post, and it's almost as many words in the Jeff LaSala's primer as it is in the Silmarillion. So if it took you a half an hour to read this chapter, it's going to take you a half an hour to read what the hell just happened that you just read. So it doubles the amount of time it takes you to read the Silmarillion, but it's totally crucial. I would not recommend that you just read the Silmarillion primer by itself. You can kind of read the Silmarillion. Your eyes might glaze over some of the sections a little bit, and then you go read Jeff LaSalle's version. It's like it all makes sense.
I do like some of his chapter titles.
Yeah,
I was literally about to ask. I'm like, what if I just read the primer? Will I still pass the test?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that too. It's totally fine. Yeah, totally fine. But if you want to read the Silmarillion, I guess the better way to look at it, if you want to read the Silmarillion, don't read it alongside the Silmarillion primer. If you don't want to do anything, just watch the show, and it'll be a lot of fun.
I wonder how many hours that would take to do both.
Yeah, I had a habit of doing one chapter a night, both ways. As I was in bed, so maybe 45 minutes.
What are your thoughts on the Unfinished Tales book? And do you think they're going to pull from that for the show too?
Yeah, Unfinished Tales are unfinished because they're oftentimes they're like versions of stories that are published in the Silmarillion, like contradictory versions sometimes. Or sometimes there's just straight up backstory. So like people who complain about The Hobbit being 3 movies when it's only like a 45-page book, that's true. But there's also they're pulling in a bunch of stuff from like the appendices of Lord of the Rings and stuff from Unfinished Tales. So it's all canon, but he just kind of brought it in there to make a longer story. So I like it. I keep that one. When I read the Silmarillion, dude, it's like Silmarillion on one tablet, Silmarillion Primer on another tablet. I have 2 amazing encyclopedias that I keep nearby. And then oftentimes I'll take a break altogether, read a section of the Unfinished Tales or read a section of Lord of the Rings, and then come back to where I was. Because the guy is just like connecting things, as you know, he's just connecting things together constantly. And
I'm just trying to envision you like sitting out like on your back porch or whatever, and you've got like books open.
Yeah.
You've got like the long pipe, you got the Howard Shore music playing in the background, you got a tankard of ale, and you're just turning a page and then turning this page and just puffs his ring coming out. And it's a good image. It's pretty cool looking.
Yeah. And I wear glasses. They're not here. I wear glasses when I read, and I look pretty like different. So it's like Nat, the Lauder professor. But you don't have to do any reading. If you just want to watch, if you like the Peter Jackson stuff, I have every expectation you're going to like the Amazon stuff. Just freaking watch the show. You don't have to get all dorky about it. I'm sure that the Amazon folks are going to do a great job welcoming people into the Second Age.
Right. I mean, because I'll admit, like, I really, really like the movies, and I have read The Hobbit a couple of times. I've read Lord of the Rings, I think just once. And his writing style is really hard to get down with because he kind of writes like an old British history professor.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so there's always references like, I mean, I know a lot, and I come across a word even in Lord of the Rings. Sometimes I'll come across a word that I don't know, or I barely know, and I have to bring out my encyclopedia to figure out what the heck's going on. So he doesn't reward casual aficionados, but I'm sure that the show people are going to reward the casual watcher.
Someday, if we were ever to get
TV.
like, you know,
because they're revenue driven. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A pipe dream of mine is just watching you and Stephen Colbert nerd out for like a half hour together.
I'm
not debate, just watch you two go, oh, and then.
Yeah. My daughter asked me the other day, she was writing an essay for school, and she said, how many times have you read Lord of the Rings? And I said, I guessed between 8 and 10. And she said, how many people in Portland do you think know as much as you about Lord of the Rings? And I had to pause for a moment there. And I know I'm not number one for sure. But am I top 10? I'm probably top 10. I don't know. So
I've got a lot of nerdy friends, and none of them come close to your fandom for Lord of the Rings.
Well, I was actually looking at some theonering.net, which is like the portal, the hub for a lot of fans, and I was looking at some like chats. I don't go to that chat world of there, but the chats are like full of like old people. I think I'm probably the youngest giant lotto nerd. Everybody has to be older than me. I don't know why that is. I think because you read it when you were a kid. I didn't read it until I was in my 20s. But
the One Ring chat rooms just look like the merch hall of Oricon.
yeah, like everyone's got gray.
That's the sound of me never getting invited as a guest to Oricon ever again.
You think that?
Do you want that?
Yeah, I actually had fun when I was a guest.
I would never go on a podcast to talk about Lord of the Rings with Lord of the Rings nerds. Put it that way, because they're not going to be very fun.
I will say, one of my old staff members was probably 28, big time Lord of the Rings fan.
Awesome.
Marathon every year, and super will relate anything back to Lord of the Rings if you let her.
Nice.
We should start a young person's Lord of the Rings fan club.
YP Lauder.
Yeah. YA.
Yeah, YP be like, your problems, Lord of the Rings. Which does sound like a cool podcast. Although speaking of the marathon, okay, Nat, do you just watch them all when you feel like it, or you're like, no, this holiday, this is my Lord of the Rings watch day?
We don't. My daughter and I watch the movies together. We don't watch them without each other. And we just finished the marathon 2 weeks ago. And for the first time in many years, we did one movie a night. For some reason, we just weren't feeling like sitting down for 14 hours. So we just did one a night. That's actually the first time I watched them since I have read. I've read Silmarillion like 3 times, but the first 2 times I read it was long ago. But after I sat down and really did the Silmarillion, the first time I watched the movies, and I had a greater appreciation for the movies having read the Silmarillion.
That's cool.
I think that being homebound due to COVID, you either go one way or the other as far as wanting to marathon things. Because if you go, oh yeah, we should totally do this. Like, it's one thing to marathon all of those movies in 14 hours on a single day, when the rest of your week is populated with you're here, you're there, you're there.
Right.
You're always active and out doing things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, let's just sit and watch this for 14 hours. It'd be great.
Yeah.
But when you're at home all day, it's like, let's just watch one. If I sit here, then I'm never going to do anything else today.
It's interesting. Yeah, we probably subconsciously had the exact same thought that you just described there.
I can see that.
It's weird to.
Oh no, that was. I agree. I am definitely like feeling the urge to be more physically active in my downtime, because I've had so much downtime over the past year.
Professional downtimer.
It's. I think about it a lot because I encounter people at Guardian, so it's like, oh, you were just here because you needed to be somewhere else than your house for one day this week. I get it.
You need to get out.
It's like, but you still can't stay here because there's still a pandemic.
Cable. So speaking of Guardian, it got me wondering. The Tolkien family they're pretty possessive about the rights, and there has not been a lot of Lord of the Rings games. as much as some other franchises might have games, do you anticipate that the Amazon show will encourage more horse trading to come up with some more games? 'Cause I can't think of a really, as a Lord of the Rings fan and as a gaming fan, I can't think of a good Lord of the Rings game.
It seems like they're few and far between, and I don't know if the show will help kind of bring that about. I know the biggest Lord of the Rings game right now is Lord of the Rings Journeys to Middle Earth, or Journeys in Middle Earth, which is technically a board game, but it's a large format board game with some miniatures, and it's campaign driven.
Like Descent style or Gloomhaven, kind of that.
I think a little leaning more towards Gloomhaven, less towards Descent, but similar. The similarities to Descent is fair since it's also produced by Fantasy Flight. And Fantasy Flight has held has been one of the companies that has consistently held the rights to produce any Lord of the Rings material, because they had the living card game, which they're still producing product for, but they've cycled through everything that they were going to make. So there's no new product coming out. There's just existing product being reprinted. I know Games Workshop has a miniatures tabletop game for it.
They have the War of the Ring miniature game, right? Is that them?
War of the Ring is actually Ares. It's a different company, and it's still technically a board game. Whereas the Lord of the Rings miniatures game by Games Workshop is Warhammer, only with Lord of the Rings characters.
Interesting.
So no Blood God.
No.
I just wonder if there's going to be a commercialization of Lord of the Rings, like they're, with the Amazon show.
We may see more of that once the Amazon show comes out, but that usually ends up being Lord of the Rings branded Monopoly, Lord of the Rings branded Clue, and those nobody cares. I mean, they care. They buy them because they think they're going to be worth something. Here's a secret, folks. Nobody wants your collector licensed Monopoly. Nobody wants it. No one wants it.
Remember Beanie Babies.
Wait, I'm not going to retire on my episode 1 Phantom Menace limited edition Monopoly.
Oh, good Lord, no. No. If it's still sealed, mint in box, open the goddamn thing and play with it.
No, I did.
Honestly,
Actually,
that's kind of an insult, because limited edition versions of Monopoly are like, what, $65?
Yes.
Like,
because of paying for the license.
And they're limited because the publisher knew they couldn't sell very many of them.
Here's the thing. I only bought it for literally just 2 dorky reasons that had nothing to do with Monopoly, because I hate Monopoly. I bought it because they were the same size miniatures you could use in a role-playing game. And they were actual sturdy metal miniatures.
What game is this? Your name was
the Phantom Menace Monopoly.
Phantom Menace.
And then all of the money was in the Arabesh, which was pretty fucking cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it had a 500 and 1,000 credit token that didn't show Monopoly money anything. It looked like it was early Imperial money, and I was like, oh, I want that. And then I just used it in Star Wars role-playing games. I never played Monopoly ever.
And that's worthwhile to get things like that from. So far, I think that one of the best licensed product big box game that I've seen that I'm like, oh, that would actually be fun, is Dungeons and Dragons Clue.
It's fun.
Clue.
It adds a few D&D elements to it to kind of throw you off the regular game.
So you're not in the mansion. You're in different parts of a dungeon or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah, and basically be like a non-campaign style RPG game.
And I think the character on the front cover happens to be what are this called? Tieflings.
Right.
It's a tiefling character.
Interesting.
Now
Never
I'm wondering
played
if
Clue.
what was that mean?
Never played Clue.
I think it's pretty fun if you're 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Better than Monopoly, right?
It's fun.
It's
It's
way
a fun
better than
game.
Monopoly.
Exactly.
I think
But
you
it's
would.
not as fun as like the movie, right?
Nothing is as
No,
fun as
yeah.
the movie because it doesn't have Tim Curry
I hope, and it's
or
never going to
Madeline Kahn.
happen. They're never, ever, ever going to get to put out the official, like the Clue board game using the actors from the movie.
Clue version Clue.
That's not true. When they're all dead, they'll be able to use it.
Oh,
Who's
I'm
holding it
sorry.
up?
I am just imagining it's a weird rights thing, and maybe they just think it's not worth it. But could you imagine if, well, they don't exist anymore, but remember how Think Geek used to like basically will their April Fool's items into existence by making it, and they're like, oh my God. If like 8 years ago, Think Geek did the Clue version of Clue, like I feel like, what was it, Parker Brothers or whatever, and they would have had no choice but to like, oh fuck, we got to pay for all the likeness rights because this is just money we're leaving on the table.
Parker Brothers, Kenner, all of those companies, none of them exist. It's all Hasbro.
That's right. It's all Hasbro now.
Yeah.
Hasbro bought all of them.
I think Unilever owns Hasbro, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have their own Monopoly.
Yay!
Ba-ba-ba-ba.
Now I'm wondering, could you do a version of Betrayal with Lord of the Rings, like Betrayal at
Helm's Deep.
Well, no, it would have to be a Betrayal at, I don't know, because you've got to get everyone together for a reason. I guess you don't have to. I'm giving too much thought to Betrayal at the House on the Hill.
No, the license doesn't lend itself to the theme of the game.
Yeah, it doesn't. Unlike Star Trek, damn it.
Clue doesn't convert over to Betrayal?
No,
Lord of the Rings into Betrayal.
Oh, okay. I was like, I can totally see that. I'm like putting it together in my mind right now.
Yeah,
But
you
no.
can do some characters, but not all the characters. All the good characters.
like it would. You could do a Betrayal in Hobbiton, and it would be everything would be someone stole someone else's pork pie. Like it would either be very wholesome or incredibly. It would be darker than anyone would be comfortable with.
Murdering hobbits.
Yep.
The answer to whoever stole the pork pie is always going to be Merry and Pippin.
Yes.
Basically, yeah.
Although now I want to design like a very charming game that all revolves around like some kind of Hobbit festival where it's all about making the best beer or making the best pie or growing the biggest potatoes. But you're all kind of like, charmingly trying to backstab each other.
I feel like there are games out there that exist that could easily you could imprint the license of
like
Lord of the Rings on top of.
You imprint, what's that game, Sushi, where you're trying to build the best like
Sushi Go?
Sushi Go, or there's a Bento Go, we're trying to build the best bento box, and or am I confusing?
There's Sushi Go, Sushi Go Party, and Sushi Roll, which is Sushi Go with dice instead of cards.
Bento is the video game one that you're thinking of.
Well, there you go.
But yes, like there are other cooking games or just gathering games that you can put together. Like there's the game Tiny Towns, which is tile placement, and once you put certain tiles together, it gives you a different tile, and you get little houses. That would be creating your own shire, like your own neighborhood in the shire. That would be great, and people would buy that.
There hasn't been a Settlers of Middle Earth yet.
Although
Catan doesn't license out to very many properties, do they? Not that I can think
The
of.
only licensed property that Catan does is Star Trek,
which is actually pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
Yeah, they add a few other extra elements to it.
There's Star Trek Catan, and then the expansion to that is the Federation. And people who play it are like, oh yeah, it's great because it's Catan, but it's also still different. It's very Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only thing that keeps it afloat.
I also still wonder if all of the Green Bay Packers still play Catan in the locker room.
They might.
It's one of my favorite stories.
Oh, they switched to Fortnite or something?
Oh, that would kind of bum me out if they did.
That'd be depressing.
Well, Nat, then thanks for nerding out.
Oh yeah.
You can hang out more because we're going to talk about. Do you watch the Marvel movies and stuff?
I have watched the Marvel movies. I have not watched WandaVision or anything.
That's what we're going to dive into. If you want to hang out and listen to us, that's cool. If you don't want spoilers.
No, I got dinner smelling downstairs, and we are planning on watching WandaVision, so I'll hold that one.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, man, thank you so much having you on.
Absolutely.
As always, it's great.
Yeah, maybe I'll come back whenever the new first episode comes out, and we can hyperventilate about that one.
I feel like we should just have you start covering it.
I'd be happy to be. I'll be the roving Lord of the Rings reporter for the Geek.
Or we can set it up. We'll get you a nice big high back chair. We'll put you in your cider house.
Just want a long pipe,
like a snifter and a pipe, and then we'll just no. We go to Nat's corner of Middle Earth, and you could be like,
let's review this week's episode.
It'll be like Masterpiece Theater, but for nerds.
Oh yeah, and like 4 people will pay attention. Yeah,
no.
That'll be awesome.
In this round, come on.
Yeah. Oh, the 3 of you plus 1 more. Yeah,
plus Norm.
Plus Norm.
Thanks, Norm. Love you, Norm.
All right, Nat. Well, thank you. Go eat your dinner.
Goodbye, y'all. Thanks for the opportunity. Talk to you later.
Always great.
Bye.
Bye.
Woohoo. So, unless you watch this on YouTube, you missed how many times Nat had like this giddy nerd face when he was describing certain parts of what could be happening. Like he looked genuinely giddy.
He was very, very into this.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm excited for him.
Yeah. I'm curious, how many listeners are now listening to the show on YouTube?
Well, like watching it as we recording, we average between 8 and 12, which I know is not the greatest number ever.
It's fine.
But I'm able to kind of see because I'm able to see a little bit like numbers, and I think people go back later.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the recorded episodes, not how many people listen live. I don't care how many people are here. I recognize the names that come up every week, and it's great, and I love these people.
Right. I have actually been tempted. So like on the Patreon, I just put the podcast up for free, but I've been tempted instead of just the audio file of putting the video up as the Patreon content.
Mm.
Don't they stay on YouTube or no, because they're live? So they're only
they do stay on YouTube. Yeah, that's why if you go to the Geek and City Radio channel on YouTube now, it's now like 80% episodes and like 20% my random review of like Star Trek ships, and back when I was reviewing a cider a week. But it's the majority are now episodes on there. Yeah, so
we probably should have been doing these on the Geek in the City account, the show account.
It doesn't have one.
YouTube belongs to Google, so it's like it would automatically exist.
Well, what do you mean on the account then?
This is your personal YouTube channel or
but it's
or whatever.
But it says Geek in the City, so it doesn't say Aaron Duran. It never has.
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Wait, it does?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
My subscription for this says Aaron Duran.
Well, then maybe we'll create one for.
But that's what she's pointing out, is because it's owned by Google. There is a auto-generated one for that title.
If you have a Gmail account, you automatically have a YouTube account under the same thing.
It just sits unused until you actually use it, and then then it's findable.
Well, look at me not knowing the internet. Maybe we'll start that next week.
We've also talked about looking into Twitch, so we'll see.
I know.
That's true. Which might be cooler.
It would be cooler.
I don't really know anything about Twitch, so
that's the thing. Hence where my old man internet. I was like, I don't get Twitch. I get watching it. I have tried streaming to it before, and I don't understand why I need to have some weird third-party software to do what Twitch allegedly does automatically.
Who knows? All the cool kids are on Twitch.
Yeah, I know.
I know Merrick is on Twitch. I don't.
Yeah, I feel like I just need to buy Merrick a couple of dark beers, and we sit 6 feet apart. And she says, "Okay, now this button here, push that one." Okay. Now this button, okay. Once I do it once, I'll remember how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You could ask her to do it with you over Zoom. Screen share.
That's true.
And then you
Jamie
can,
Jeans reminds us that Twitch is very stickler about music copyright as YouTube is. But
yeah, but we don't really use
we have
music
our own
anymore.
theme song now.
we do have
Yeah,
our own
we
theme
do. We
song,
own
and we don't use any background music.
Yeah, we don't do any of that. Yeah, no, we get to do whatever we want with that theme song.
Woo!
Except repackage it and sell it as something we wrote.
Yeah, no,
I have
no
no interest in doing that, so I think we're fine.
Right. No, it's totally us singing, you guys.
That's me on the bass.
Boom, 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 boom.
That's
boom,
me
boom.
on that other instrument that's in it.
A guitar.
Yeah. Actually, you know which one's me? That's Aaron on the clap. Oh, fuck.
Nicely done, Duran.
I'm going to sign off, you guys. It's your show now.
Okay.
Y'all talk about WandaVision.
We'll just talk
No,
about
go
WandaVision.
ahead. No, go ahead and talk about WandaVision. I'm just going to sit back here and, no longer give myself
Fold
disease.
in on yourself.
Yep. Go ahead. WandaVision came out Friday.
All right, so let's talk WandaVision briefly. If
Yes.
anyone has in the chat or listening on the podcast has not watched it yet, skip ahead to the end because we'll probably have some spoilers.
Spoiled?
Yeah,
I'm safe and sorry.
you never know.
Okay, where to begin?
So the inaugural week for WandaVision had 2 episodes rather than just one. I have a theory as to why, but I have a couple of theories actually. But
Well, let's hear them before we move on.
one has to do with it's in the same time slot as Mandalorian, and I think Mandalorian ended, and WandaVision was probably maybe supposed to have started a week ahead, and something got screwed up with the timing because of COVID. So they went, we're starting late. Let's just put 2 episodes in one and call it good.
Yeah, because it wasn't like it felt like it felt like it was like a 1-hour pilot. Like they were 2 distinct episodes.
And the other is that the way the first episode plays, it plays so straight that if you have no foreknowledge of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, which you would have had to have been born like last year not to know. Literally not born last year. The episode just plays as this very straightforward black and white sitcom with no real sense of this isn't real. You get more of that in the second episode. So it's like, I think they went, we need to give people a little bit more so we keep that hook. I don't think it was needed because I was hooked after the first episode, but man, I can also see where an executive went, do 2 of them. It's fine. I don't care.
I agree with the
Disney.
latter one. It helps really establish that like what you saw in the first episode is not the whole show. There is a metamorphosis that is going to continue. So let's go ahead and throw a second episode in there so you are clear on that as the watcher, even though it's very obvious that there is a lot of different things clearly in a lot of different eras happening if you watch any of the trailers. And how did you make it this far and decide to watch WandaVision if you haven't even seen a trailer?
I don't know that I've seen a teaser of WandaVision, but I didn't watch a former trailer. Of course, I also just went, yeah, I'm going to watch this.
I think it's also become pretty popular, especially on streaming networks. I guess I don't know about broadcast television, but it's becoming more popular when a series premieres to drop 2 to 3 episodes when you drop the first episode to just really, really hook people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They did it with this season's Expanse. And I mean, like, who isn't already like committed? But they dropped like 3 episodes.
3, yeah.
If you're watching this season, if you're ready to watch their newest season right now, I don't think anyone needs to lump sum you some episodes to make sure that you become invested. You're already invested.
Sure.
I'm not mad at that though. I'm not mad at it because you just get to take in that much more of it right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Good old instant gratification.
Yeah. I am glad it's weekly. As much as I love binging, I like having time to process.
I really don't like binging. The only time I will binge a show is if I'm using it as background noise so that I can get other work done.
Sure.
But if I'm going to sit and watch, I much prefer like an episode or two at a time, and that's pretty much it. 3 is pushing it, depending on how long the episodes are.
I'm not gonna say I don't like binging because I binge a lot of things, but I do agree that it is a better experience when they're doled out individually so that you have time to talk them over before you move on to the next one and let it sink in. And like I said, I rewatched those episodes again today. And you pick up on new stuff, and by then you've maybe like read a couple articles and there's some stuff that you missed, and now you get to appreciate the second time around. And there's just not really room for that if you're just consuming them all in a row.
So with that in mind, what are our takes on WandaVision?
I'll start.
Yeah, go.
I love it. Watching the second episode, which was basically Bewitched,
Mm-hmm.
I ended up having a 5-minute info dump on my husband because he was like, "Oh yeah, it's even their same floor plan with that staircase in the middle." I'm like, "No, let me tell you, in Darren and Samantha's house, the door is here, the stairs are here, the living room is like this, and the dining room's over here, and then you can't see it, but the kitchen's over here," and like just pointing out like all of the intricacies about how they're different, even though they're theoretically meant to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And just watching like all of the Dick Van Dyke kind of homage pieces and just like all of the different elements from just those 2 eras of television that they've covered in that small amount of time was really nostalgic and enjoyable. And like you were saying, Cable, they play it really, really straight. It's not satire. It's, they're not having a laugh at the cultural history of American television. It really does feel like a true homage and recreation. And I really, really appreciate that.
And yet, while they're not poking fun at it, they are pointing out that when tropes are occurring, going the whole thing about the Vision going, but what is it that we do here?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, when they are making fun of those tropes, they're also using that as a peek behind the curtain. I mean, like I said, like you watch even just the first episode and you know that something's not right. And that in and of itself is a really classic trope where the heroes have been trapped by the villain in this fantasy world that's like everything they ever wanted if they just didn't have to be superheroes and like thinking about the greater good all the time.
The greater good.
And then like slowly they start to realize, wait, something's not right. And then eventually they get the realization, oh, I've been trapped here. This isn't real. Oh, but how wonderful this is. And I could just stay here if I really wanted to. So that already, the foil of the show is a trope itself. And now they're in this, mid-century era, or for now, place setting. And they're able to take jokes, like classic jokes from those eras, and use them to show you what's really going on. Mm-hmm. Like just the fact that like they don't know their own history with each other, but they're supposed to be sitting here having a dinner party and talking about their relationship.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or not understanding how to fit in with the neighborhood. What the heck even are they? Like some sort of neighborhood committee for for
just
organizing.
one of the many busybody communities that at least we've been told existed during that era.
I mean, it was all white people, so of course they did.
It was like next door, but in person.
Ugh, God.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So I want to bring up a couple dates real quick, just so that we have reference, because we'll talk about this. The Dick Van Dyke Show was aired from 1961 to 1965. Bewitched aired from 1964 to 1972. Go ahead, Aaron.
And of course, like Bewitched started in black and white and ended in color.
Although, what were the times that those shows were supposed to be taking place in? Their current time, or were they?
They were set in modern time.
Yeah, they were set. Yeah.
For their modern era.
Right.
Gotcha.
1961 was still definitely the height of 50s era. This is what normal communities are like. This is what people are like. This is what families are like.
The pop culture had not updated.
Correct.
Right. And I think that's why the second episode we get them going from twin beds to sharing a bed. Because I think the Lucille Ball show was the first one to show. Maybe not.
They had separate beds.
You know what? It might have been of all things, it might have been the fucking Flintstones.
It might have been.
I could not picture their bedroom, so.
I Love Lucy was 1951 and 1957.
Yeah.
So I can guarantee you they were still separate beds, even though they had a kid. Same with the Dick Van Dyke Show. The Dick Van Dyke Show, they showed the bedroom frequently, and it was always 2 separate beds. Just like the second episode of WandaVision.
Right.
I thought you were going to say just like the president. I heard a thing today where, there's not going to be a walkthrough, and they pointed, and they were talking about it, and at some point they pointed out, and the Bidens will share a bedroom, so that means they're going to have to restructure all of that because the Trumps have separate bedrooms.
Yeah. Okay, so being really nerdy, really quick. So in 1947, there was a 15-minute program called Mary Kay and Johnny. They were real life husband and wife couple. They shared a bed, but it was not a very well-long show. The Flintstones were technically first, but their eligibility is not considered by the Censor Bureau because they weren't real.
Right.
Okay.
It's like the first interracial kiss.
So it would be... Okay, apparently the ones that had, quote, real people sharing a bed were the Munsters. 1964. Really? Yep.
Okay.
And the next big thing was how many times you could show a bathroom, which apparently people love to point out that the Brady Bunch had 6 separate bedrooms for the kids and only 1 bathroom. Anyway, going down a weird hole there.
Now I want to know what happened in 1964 because the Addams Family, the Munsters, and Bewitched all came out in 1964.
Well, the Munsters were a attempt to copycat the Addams Family.
But fair, but what was going on in 1964 and in 1963 that made Hollywood go, you know what we need to do is put more horror into TV, but make it funny?
I don't know.
That's a really good question, and now I want to do a deep dive on that.
I know.
Sidebar, Bex in the chat is saying that they kind of want to see a Dream of Jeannie episode of WandaVision, which I agree would be a lot of fun, but I bet they had a kind of a coin toss between I Dream of Jeannie style versus Bewitched, and they ended up with Bewitched.
Right. Well, I think it's because I Dream of Jeannie was always in color, I think.
And yeah, I Dream of Jeannie started a year later. It was 1965. America's also hoping for I Dream of Jeannie, a little I Dream of Jeannie homage next week.
Yeah,
and they could get 2 different actors to play Vision.
Well, that was
Bewitched. You're right. Yeah. Damn it.
Taryn York, Dick Sargent. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dick Sargent York. 2 dicks.
No, they were both dicks. The character's name was Darren.
That's right.
I think one of my favorite moments came from episode 2, where we got to see Paul Bettany go all the way back to his performance from A Knight's Tale for the drunk vision moments on stage. That was, oh man.
Who was he in that?
Have you seen A Knight's Tale?
When it first came out, how long ago was that? 20 years ago. That's when I saw it.
He was Chaucer. He was Heath Ledger's hype man.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's why I was so excited when he got cast to play Vision. I'm like, oh yeah, he's great. I love Paul Bettany.
Right on. Might have to watch that again.
Yeah. I wanted to watch it immediately after watching that episode. I'm like, I want to watch Knight's Tale. No. I still do because it's funny.
But yeah, his performance where he was like drunk.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many.
I like the little nod to the Grim Reaper, the Marvel villain Grim Reaper.
Oh.
There's been a couple of times where you have seen that weird four-pronged helmet of his. It's been under the floorboards of their house a couple of times when she's looking.
Really?
Under the floorboards.
Yeah. You have to go back and check it out. Yeah. You got to really watch it slow and then pause shit. But that's only extra weird because it was a Wanda and Vision villain from the 60s or whatever. But in the Vision miniseries, Vision's wife, Virginia, kills the Grim Reaper and buries them in the backyard. So it's kind of a neat little thing there.
The ads. The ads.
The ads are great.
There's the one for the toaster. I started getting so mad at that one. Is your husband tired of you burning his toast? I'm like, well, then tell him to eat a dick.
You would have done well in the 60s.
Yeah.
No, I would not have.
I found it fascinating that was that ad was actually the first moment where they showed something was wrong, because that's the only bit in that episode where there's color.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The red light flashing on the toaster. It's like, nope, that's not okay.
The Stark toaster.
Didn't realize that either of the times I watched it.
I saw it right away. I'm like, oh, I don't like that.
But it takes way too long, and then they cut to the housewife, and she just looks at you.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the watch ad, which Christian pointed out to me. The name of the brand is another Marvel villain.
Because the Hydra symbol was on the watch.
Yes.
Well, he's the character that in the movies gave Wanda and her brother their powers.
Mm-hmm.
Activated her genes.
Yeah,
at
Carl
the end
Strucker.
of the ad, you hear the watch, the second hand ticking on the watch, and then it starts ticking faster and louder.
Yep, to match the beeping of the toaster.
Oh, damn it. I'm going to have to watch it again.
What I didn't know that Merrick went to me, she's like, did you read the miniseries Avengers Standoff? And I'm like, no, don't know that one at all. She's like, laid out the plot. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because she thinks that's what we're watching right now is an adaptation of Avengers Standoff.
Okay.
As well as being something of an adaptation of the Tom King Vision series.
Right. I also liked in the separate episode, the animated intro.
Mm-hmm.
You know how normally we get the moon with Bewitched?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got that in this one, but I think it was a pretty obvious nod to Thanos and the Infinity Stones. It's one giant and then 6 tiny circles around it, and then it goes WandaVision.
God, I missed that.
They're putting in all kinds of super nerdy Easter eggs, like okay, I have a weird knowledge of 60s and 70s era Marvel, which is very
Go ahead.
Weird. So in Marvel, there's a character named Bova, which is this weird humanoid cow. The humanoid cow is who ends up giving birth to Wanda and Vision's twins in the comic. So Boba the cow works for a character named Herbert, who is the high evolutionary of Marvel, and they have a neighbor named Herb. I think they're actually working in a lot of Wanda's broken history from the comics also to show that she is tapping into the multiverse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like DC has Power Girl, Marvel has Wanda in terms of past that are like, what the fuck? That have been rewritten over and over and over again.
And she's done her own rewriting as well.
Yeah, so you see that at the end of the second episode.
Oh, when she's
goes, like, oh, this isn't what I want. So let's just cut it back a couple minutes and try this again.
Yeah, when she just says no.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, those moments where they break character.
Mm-hmm.
So good. The dinner party in particular is really, really good.
I think what sold that dinner party was Deborah Jo Rupp.
She's so fun and everything.
She was great.
And it was odd that I was just thinking about Emma Caulfield like a couple weeks ago. Like, I haven't seen Emma Caulfield in anything. And here she is in episode 2 playing Dottie. Emma Caulfield was Anya from Buffy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's who I recognize that actor.
That's who that was.
I was like, I recognize this person that is very good at sounding like a kind of busybody PTA kind of judgy person.
She was high on her own power.
There were other little things like the disappearing cabinet. The image on the front of the disappearing cabinet is the stone from Vision's head.
Right. Which makes me think we're going to get more of that in phase 4, because I think after Vision or before, I think Adam Warlock gets that stone eventually in his forehead.
That makes sense.
Remember, Guardians 3 ended with what's her name saying, I have created the perfect founder or whatever. And what are you going to call him? Adam.
Mm-hmm.
So nerds.
And
then I really hope the beekeeper is not a reference to Hydra, but is a reference to AIM showing up.
I thought it was. I honestly did.
To that it was AIM.
Mm-hmm.
I really want AIM. I want AIM so bad, because that means
proper AIM. Like we have AIM, but proper AIM with the
proper AIM.
Yeah.
The crazy, because you know what AIM means. You know who we're gonna get if we get AIM.
Mm-hmm.
MODOK. So ridiculous, but I love MODOK.
I will recommend, if you haven't already looked up the cast list on IMDb, don't.
Oh, does it give cast or characters away?
I made it. Yes, it does. So I'm not going to ruin what because I was looking somebody up because I wanted to know the neighbor, who I now recognize from Community, but Parks and Rec. She was Leslie Knope's political advisor when Leslie's running.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because I kept mistaking her for Anna Gasteyer all the time.
You know, they're so similar.
They are, but like.
But Anna Gasteyer hasn't been in a thing in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's her face is in everything.
Mm-hmm. But her character's fun, and I know that it's going to turn out that she knows way more that she's there to help kind of keep an eye on Wanda, but she's a plant the entire time. But like I saw one of the other cast members, the name they were introduced as, and then the name of their character's actual name, and I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't take your advice because I had to know, because it doesn't really affect my enjoyment of it. That's really shitty of IMDb to list that name as their character before the character they're actually fucking mentioned as in the episode.
Yep.
Like, I saw that character, that person, and I thought, I wonder if they could be, and they are.
I really want to know, but I don't. Don't spoil it.
And
well, I don't know. Maybe you'll tell me, and it doesn't mean anything to me anyway. But
no, it will.
It will
100% mean something to you.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it, but I
Which,
know so
considering
little about the Marvel
I
the
also-
weird history of that character also makes a lot of sense.
I also
Definitely
saw
tell me.
one other cast member. I'm like, interesting. Okay, that's another Marvel character they're bringing back that I didn't expect to see in this show. So,
Yeah, I saw an act. No, anything else becomes a big.
but yeah, it's going to be fun. Like, I enjoy the fact that they're also being very diverse with their cast, despite the era that it's set in. Or to more accurately show, it's like, no, there were people of color here. We just only showed the white people.
I mean, theoretically, they could have gotten away with, or they could have tried to get away with like making it an all white cast, at least in the beginning,
But
because
why?
it's mid-century suburbs.
But
But it's unnecessary, and it would have been shitty, to like do it even if they felt justified. So.
Yep. So I think it's going to be fun to see where the rest of these episodes go. The other thing that they teased both with the ending of both episodes, where they pull back to that whatever control room that is that the symbol on the corner of a screen and on the notebook in front of the TV is the symbol for the agency called SWORD.
That came up somewhere else too. I think in one of the ads.
And SWORD is the sibling organization to SHIELD.
I wondered. I assumed there must have been some sort of connection. I figured they weren't a bad guy, but were probably connected to SHIELD in some way.
Yeah,
Which one?
SWORD. We talked about the fact that the emblem showed up, so that's also kind of a
right.
I don't really know what SWORD is, but I had ideas, just logically speaking.
They did the same thing SHIELD did, but only more proactively. And it's like, oh, instead of preparing for the worst, we're just going to go find the worst and kill it.
Yeah. And often in space.
I mean, arguments can be made one way or the other.
Right.
It's a whole another rabbit hole that's probably not worth getting into.
Yeah.
I think that argument was made by Fury, and Steve Rogers said, no. If you're going to be a SHIELD, this is not what you do.
Right.
So,
and then he took down 3 helicarriers.
That's where it is. It's on the toy helicopter is where the SWORD logo also appears.
That's true.
Thanks, Norm. So I was actually like surprised at how much I really, really enjoyed it, because I was not invested in the idea. I know so little about Wanda or Vision besides whatever's in the big movies. I don't I don't read Marvel. But I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm actually like really looking forward to the rest of the series, not just as a Marvel story, because I feel like they've got some really, really good writing, especially because they have to do it in these foils that are going to change every week.
But
also
wait
because
till they hit to the 80s.
Well, as a person who was basically raised and lived off of television, it's just hitting so many like good buttons for me, and I'm like really looking forward to see what else they do now, having seen how craftily they have handled it.
What do you?
Go ahead.
Because I feel like they're trying, like someone's actually trying to help Wanda. That's the voice you keep hearing
on the radio.
On the radio. What if? Because I keep feeling like they keep hinting like WandaVision and the multiverse is what lets them bring in mutants and the Fantastic Four. But like,
and ties into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man 3.
I would not be surprised if they spring Benedict on us like in the last episode of this series.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a surprise.
Maybe not even Doctor Strange. Like he is Doctor Strange, but he's personifying someone else for her. But like, what if she's currently being treated in the St. Teresa Center for Mental Health? Which is like basically Marvel's Arkham Asylum.
Which would make sense because,
Yeah.
like, as fun as all of this is, you still have to take the step back and go, wait, Vision is dead.
Yeah, he's not coming back.
So whoever this is isn't the Vision.
How did he die?
Thanos killed him.
Thanos killed him.
Okay,
He was killed.
No,
he was killed
separately, and
pre-snap.
that's why he stayed gone.
Yeah.
Thank you. I actually could not remember. I was like, I thought he died in the movie. Well, guess
Yeah.
what?
That whole comment in that exchange in the first episode between Vision and Wanda, where he says, "Oh, my wife and her flying saucers," and "Oh, my husband and his indestructible head." It's like, no, his head was destructible. It was 100% destructible. That was the thing that got destructed by Thanos when he pulled the stone off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the comment of my wife and her flying saucers, I'm like, oh, you mean the flying saucers that were bombarding the area around her when she was killing Thanos?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what happens to her at the end of Endgame. Does she kind of break there?
She got a lot of her immediate rage out on Thanos directly by confronting him. He's like, I don't even know who you are. She's like, you're gonna remember. Because then she nearly killed him. Yeah. He had to fire on his own people in order to make her stop.
Yeah. And one could argue that in the movie, she's actually incredibly depowered.
Yeah, which I think is what the purpose of WandaVision is, to show exactly how powerful Wanda actually is. Because Feige has talked about it. It's like, oh no, if that had not been interrupted, we would not have gotten to Tony Stark making the snap, the Infinity Gauntlet, because Wanda would have killed Thanos. She actually has the power to do it, and then Captain Marvel, and then anyone with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah. I could actually see, like, in her rage, she basically, again, they've like depowered for the movies, but like all she has to say is no more Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
If her mental state allows it, he's gone. He just doesn't fucking exist anymore.
Right.
And a little side note really quick, if it is St. Teresa Center for Mental Health, just like to remind folks that within canon, that hospital is in Portland.
Of course it is.
Duly noted.
Yep. The New Mutants live in Portland.
I'm just like trying to like parse that all out. If this is some sort of a fever dream and not some sort of simulation via a villainous entrapment, then why is it that Vision doesn't know the same things that she can't remember? Like why,
because
a certain date is important, or
I think because he's a manifestation of what she wants.
But everyone else is.
I think that's where it lends itself to. It's not a fever dream. This is something being done to her.
Yeah, that's what I assume, is that the whole thing is basically a simulation, or whether it's like technologically happening or magically, or like whatever superpower somebody might have to force that on her.
But to Aaron's hope about the beekeeper being a nod to AIM, that gives us the three of the major organizations. So we've seen the symbol for sword, we've now seen the symbol for Hydra, and we have seen, if the beekeeper is supposed to be AIM, that's three of the bigger named organizations, all of which have delved into abducting and creating the simulacra for imprisonment.
And I believe Elizabeth Olsen's actually, I think she sent an interview. She's like, I'm not a hero in this show, so just get ready. Like she said, she's like, don't think that Wanda is like the person who's going to save the day in this. I think, I
That's interesting because the trailers imply that she is.
I think trailers imply that she's the victim. That doesn't necessarily make them the hero.
But who then will take matters into her own hands to stop bad things from happening.
Mhm.
The other thing that sort of lends itself to the idea that this is being done to her is, well, not only the radio thing where, what is it? Who's doing this to you? Something like that, right? But also just those moments where like something isn't fully fleshed out, like that part of the map hasn't been rendered yet.
Right.
Good way to put it.
Asking people questions and they like need a moment to answer, but it's something that they should automatically know. What else?
Vision's job.
The fact that like no one can really answer what Vision's job is, or what the company does really.
Mhm.
Again, they wrote it in a way that plays into a trope of that era of television, but it's still sort of this thing where like, how come no one can answer this question? And then of course, the dinner with the boss, where he sort of like glitches out and he's like, why are you here? What, like just like suddenly freaking out and demanding answers. And then that gets shut down pretty handily by, causing him to have bodily distress.
Right.
And then the wife, who is also kind of glitching at the same time, Deborah Jo Rupp, like going, stop it. But she's still sort of like going, he, like just like silly housewife.
Yeah, I felt like that was the indication of to both Wanda and Vision. It's like, yes, this is something that's happening to you. Yes, this is a simulation. Yes, someone else is trying to drive this. However, we are also still people. We are not here as part of our own will.
So you think they're real people?
Please
who
save
are also being forced into this situation.
Please save this person. What's happening with them is not their fault.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I also enjoy the actual vocal tonal shift in Elizabeth Olsen in that scene, because as Wanda, she's kind of peppy, mid-century housewife.
It's exactly how they used to talk on those shows.
Yeah, but when she looks at him and says, "Vision, save him," like that's Scarlet Witch.
That's her real self.
Yeah, that's Scarlet Witch saying, "Do this, make this right." Yeah.
Which then lends the credence to Vision is of Wanda's making and not of someone else's.
That's what I think too. I think she's actually constructed Vision through her abilities. And if the show at all follows her history with the kids, that is not going to end well for like existence.
Nope.
No.
Ooh, okay. Don't tell me about that.
Yeah, no,
I don't know that either.
But with most things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe versus the Marvel Comic Universe, they take kind of the best things that they want and then adapt.
It took 20 minutes after that second episode was officially seen by everyone for House of M to start trending. Yeah.
What's House of M?
See, if we say too much more about it, it will give away what potentially could happen in WandaVision.
Gotcha. Nope. Okay. Nope. So something to visit later.
Yeah, I remember Ben just literally tweeted when he saw that. He's like, I didn't do it. He's like, bless you. I didn't do it.
I'm going to use Merrick's recommendation. If anyone hasn't read Avengers Standoff, go find it.
Yeah, it's good.
Because I think there's a lot of merit based on what she's told me about the plot of the book. It's like, oh, okay.
That's tempting, she said, looking at her stack of 57 unread comics.
Yeah, well,
What's it called? Avengers what?
Avengers Standoff. I will say this. I not only am I looking forward to the 80s, but I'm also looking forward to, there's got to be a nod to Full House.
Oh, I already saw it. I already saw which scenes are the Full House scenes.
How could there not be?
Oh, it's one of the biggest one in its time, isn't it?
That features her sisters.
Also that.
So what's 70s going to be? Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Brady Bunch, Partridge Family. Um,
Well, it seems like they sort of stick to one for each era.
Well, because there's what, 10 episodes? 8 or 10?
9.
9.
yeah. I don't. Huh. I don't know that each episode sticks to one show because I think there are multiple Easter eggs in each of them.
But they stick to
An
themes
era.
within
Yeah.
that genre of that
Yeah,
era.
they use tropes from all across any one era,
Yeah.
but like overall each episode is an homage to a specific show from what I've been able to tell.
Yeah, because the first episode is clearly Lucille Ball and Dick Van Dyke Show.
Mm-hmm. With some Leave It
I
to
would have
Beaver in
said
there.
mostly Dick Van Dyke.
Mostly Dick Van Dyke, yeah.
Yeah. Because
if only
he was
because
the
Paul
consultant.
Bentley's got similar physical comedy characterisms as Dick Van Dyke.
He just leaps over that armchair.
Yep.
Just
Like literally, I remember I started watching it and I started watching the credits and I couldn't help it. I started going, na 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 na. Fucking, I still love the Dick Van Dyke.
When they first walk into their house at the beginning of the episode, you're waiting for an ottoman.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Brady Bunch. I mean, do they make it get a bit more edgier, or do they throw in All in the Family?
Maybe they do nods to Mary. I would hope that they do nods to Mary Tyler Moore as well.
That's right, Mary Tyler Moore.
That was 60s also, wasn't it?
No, 70s.
No,
70s? Okay. That covers that.
Because she could wear pants then.
Right.
But she wore pants in the second episode. They had a whole conversation about it.
Yes, because that was the transition to the transitional period where suddenly female,
It was acceptable.
women were wearing pants on TV.
And I feel like by the time you get to the 80s, you could make an argument that there are 3 distinct eras of 80s sitcoms.
Family Ties.
Yeah, you get your earliest, which is, well, the earliest is the end of like what they actually used to call the urban sitcom, which means you're getting the end of All in the Family, The Jeffersons, 227.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like you get then it's in the early 80s is all fucking cop shows, and as much as dark as it is, like the Cosby Show saved the sitcom in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And you get Family Ties.
That's later.
Growing
isn't
Pains.
You get Growing Pains, maybe Roseanne. And the end of the 80s is peak consumerism, where you get the TGI Friday lineup that rolls into early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you start getting your Fresh Prince. Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, beyond the story itself, it's a really interesting way for it to work on cultural touchstones of like American sitcoms.
And I think that's the thing that's the most fascinating about the show, and that has definitely been the thing that has hooked viewers.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see the later episodes, because then you'll be dealing with an era where the people who write and work on the show grew up watching those shows and probably have a more personal connection to them. You know, they reference stuff like Dick Van Dyke and Bewitched because those shows have transcended. They're now icons of television of that era. So if you grow up wanting to write for TV, you fucking watch the Dick Van Dyke Show and Bewitched. Like you just study it, you know?
Someone mentioned it in the chat earlier, but yeah, if you're of a certain age, you also spent a lot of time with those essentially classics. Thanks to Nick at Night. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, we've been going on for almost 2 hours. We should wrap it up here.
Yes.
No, but it was fun.
I think that is a testament to the show, because these 2 hours of television made me want to talk more about this show.
Right.
Than a lot of shows I've been watching. So that's pretty great.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it and how forward I am to looking to the rest of the season.
Yeah. Next week we're gonna have Greg and Ida back on. That's the end of the month, right?
Yes.
Yes. This time they do know. I believe they'll be covering the Paladin. This will be the last of the building character out of core classes. From now on out, from next week on out, it's going to get weird, I guess.
I don't even think we have a plan for the rest of it.
I know. We'll talk about it next week. And then, of course, we'll cover the 3rd episode of WandaVision. Just one episode now per week. So. I don't want to say it yet. Next week, we can announce our guests for the first show of February.
We can probably announce a lot of our February, I think.
Next week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They happen, but we could do it.
Well, I want to lock in one more. But I feel like next week we could pretty much announce all of February, and it's guest packed.
Indeed.
Less work for us.
Woo!
But we do back end work. It's fun.
Yes, we do. Well, yeah. Thanks to Nat popping in, nerding out over Lord of the Rings.
Now I definitely want to watch that show.
Oh, Gilligan's Island.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. It'd be a great one.
Those poor people. I watched Galaxy Quest a few nights ago. You can't think Gilligan's Island is real.
Oh,
People.
poor people.
Well, with that, I'm Aaron Duran.
I'm Benrita.
And I'm Cable Hashitani.
We'll talk everybody next week. I don't know. I need a different sign off.
Yep.
Apart from awkward
Are we
silence.
so ready for Cable to have something?
I got nothing.
Awkward silence. Bye.
Bye.
You can't just give a hand signal on a podcast, Bean. Unless I throw in like a also Denise throw up devil horns. Denise threw